We've got quite a packed itinerary. I'm glad to say that now. One or two people we thought wouldn't be here but are coming. So we've got a good number of speakers and contributors. But we are mindful of the fact that you've come to have a chat and speak about old times. So there'll be plenty of time to do that as well, hopefully.
Thank you, Jerry, and I welcome you all to back to Ladywood, St John and St Peter's Church. I think we should put our hands together and thank Jerry Rigby, who's really exceptional to be. And I think when Jerry came to see me, I think it was way back in September of last year, no idea we get so many people, which is a testimony to a very wonderful and faithful ministry of Cameron Norman sounding with power.
I would like to welcome everyone here, old members of the church, former members of the church, current members, and a whole host of family over here, lots and lots of cousins who happen to be here just now, lots of cousins from America and cousins from down south. It's really great to have you here. And I want to thank Jerry for all this planning and organisation for putting this together. And it's just been heartwarming to hear how valued Mum and Dad still are. And we were hoping to have Dad's younger brother here, Alan. But very, very sadly, Alan died a few days ago. And we're really happy that Pat can be here. Pat's made it here. So Pat, really nice to have you here. And we just extend our sympathy and love to your family just now. So many of us here remember all the summer camps that Dad did, Dad and Mum. Sandy and Jean, Mum and Dad, and a band of really fantastic helpers would take about 50 boys from Ladywood every August off on holiday. And I remember all the fundraising that Dad did for this. And lots of donations came from readers of his weekly article in the Birmingham Mail. I remember all these letters coming in, money in it for the camp, so it was absolutely brilliant. And every year for 1 week in August, a part of Birmingham here would arrive in this little village of Alveston on the coast of England. And we lived in a church hall set in a large field with a creek running alongside it. And we swam and rowed boats and got covered in mud when the tide was out. And a short walk away was the sea. And it was just a great place to take children. I think that was one of the wonderful things that Mum and Dad did. And for me, it felt like just a time of freedom to play and be in the countryside and have fun. And we all just got along together. I think it was just a place, the atmosphere. We didn't hardly seem to need to say anything to the kids. Everything just happened perfectly. And every evening we would gather for cocoa and sandwiches and a bedtime story from Dad, who told brilliant stories, a lot of ghost stories, scary stories. The kids just loved it, it was just like one big family. And most of the boys slept on straw-stuffed sheets around the side of the church. And that was part of the fun. When you arrived, you would sit on these bales of straw, sometimes you'd have straw fights, and you'd be making your bedding at the same time. And some of the older children would sleep in tents outside. Where else would you go to? And I can remember being very excited to have my own tent at the time, I felt quite grown up. And one night I got into my sleeping bag and I was quite shocked to feel something crawling over my legs. And then I shot out of the tent yelling loudly, and I could hear all these sniggers and laughter coming from round about me. And I discovered that someone had put a hedgehog right in the bottom of my sleeping bag. I'm glad to say the hedgehog survived. I'm here today to find out who did that. Yes, my brother Mick was mentioned. Mick Panner was a member of the choir here for a long, long time. We were talking about how there used to be a huge organ around there that Mick played, and pedals for the feet, and he was just brilliant on the organ. And he also loved cricket, the cricket club, and all different sports. Great love of music. Like my mum, she had a love of music too. And it was just so sad that he died at such a young age. And the choir, there were so many activities linked to the church. The choir, the youth club, the cricket club, the dramatic society, and many, many more. It all helped to give a real sense of community and belonging. And that's what Dad valued and wrote about in his book, The Forgotten People. And of course, he was helped and supported by a lovely farmer, Jean. Dad dedicated himself to this community. Oh, I've had a story about Jean, but David told me, David Clemens. He says there was this creek at the side of the field, and he remembers my mum swimming across this creek, and she had all the makeup on, hair and perfume. Across the creek with a cigarette. And when she came back, it was still burning away. So Dad dedicated himself to this community, and it's just wonderful to hear today how much he's still appreciated and remembered. Thank you very much.
For their help right the way throughout. Since we started this last September time, October time, Albert's been there contributing. So big thanks for Albert. Their contribution. And what about that choir? Weren't they great? They're fantastic. And everyone else who's helped out, and you know who you are, and there's probably too many to mention. And finally, I suppose, my wife Christine has put up with my moods and moans and so on. So, and she's done all the. I didn't actually bake the cakes. You know, that was a lie. What I said earlier. She's actually, with the help of others, done all that. So, thanks very much. And of course, you know, the audience who've come along today and to support it. It's a unique event. It won't happen again, as far as I know. Might do. Someone else might want to do it. But for sharing your memories, you know, on the telephone, I've spoken to most of you, I think, because I control the tickets. So I've spoken to pretty much everybody who's here, one way or the other. And you've told me all your stories, and it's been a privilege, really, for me to be a part of that. And thanks very much for that. So finally, I would like to ask you to give a warm round of applause, please, for Althea. Big round of applause.
In my classroom at school, I used to have a poster above my desk that said, "Teachers don't just teach, they touch lives." I wonder how I inherited that idea from. You know, when Jerry contacted the family to discuss the idea of a reunion, I was dubious. Would it be worth it? Would anyone even remember who Dad was? Would anyone turn up? And what has been really lovely and really humbling has been the response from everyone who's contacted Jerry or the family as the event was advertised. And as Jerry's just said, everyone had a story to tell. I haven't heard them all. If there are any more, I'd love to hear them today. But usually the story was about a kindness that Dad had done, or a difference that he'd made to a life. I heard some more of those today. Julie's story of the frightened child who didn't dare take a present from the Christmas tree. You know, I can just imagine Dad running down the street with the cassock blowing in the wind, persuading her to come back. And she was a present. Just a little kindness like that. And other memories have been, I don't know if I'm allowed to say some of these, I'm going to get told off later, but I won't give away any secrets, I promise. being helped with a problem, having fun at camp, quiet trips to Clent or Elmdon Airport, remember those? Camp ghost stories about wicked witch slobber chops and the evil king crab. I still have nightmares about that one today. The youth club table tennis competitions, or some of the memories have been about just being treated with dignity and kindness. In a bookshop, one of you said, where Dad used to go buy the Sunday school prizes. Just being treated with kindness and dignity. And after all these years, you all still remember. You know, and some people tell me that my dad was special, and of course I laugh, because he was my dad. And I know he wasn't a saint. But actually, he was special. And what I've learned from helping to plan the reunion are perhaps the 4 qualities he had which really do touch lives. Firstly, treating people, no matter who they are, the child in hospital, a homeless man begging at the vicarage door, treating them all with respect and dignity. And secondly, what touches lives is kindness. Kindness is behind most of the stories I think we've heard about Dad today. And thirdly, a tremendous sense of fun. Life was for fun. The trips to airports, cricket, mahjong, 10 quiet children crammed in a battered old car, singing at the top of their voices, ghost stories at camp. And then, underpinning everything that he did was his Christian faith. Because he believed that God was kindness. It's as simple as that. God is kindness. And every human being is made in the image of God. And isn't it wonderful to know that all those random acts of kindness, actually they weren't random, were they? All those acts of kindness, they really do touch lives. And all these years later, the seeds that Dad planted really have blossomed in so many lives. And what will carry on, is carrying on, is that all of us here today, Ian carrying on here, to know that that kindness can touch a life and change it forever. So many people have said to me today, your dad changed my life completely. And that's what kindness does. Now I want to end, if that's alright, by reading a poem that Dad wrote. And it was hard to choose one. And in the end, I've chosen one about photographs. And when I came in, I thought, I'm so glad I've chosen a poem about photos. Because I thought there would be a lot of photos here today. And now this poem was written, do you remember the days where we had to buy a film? And you had to reel the film on, didn't you? And sometimes you forgot, you got two together. And then you had to go to the chemist studio, wasn't it? And then wait 2 weeks for those photos to come back. And then you realised that, oh dear, mums and dads usually didn't have the headline. So that's in the poem as well. And I like this poem because it combines Dad's sense of fun with the idea that sometimes a photo catches something. I think we saw some of those today. Catches something which never dies, something that lasts forever. So here's a poem that Dad wrote, and it's called Holiday Snaps. I wish Dad would read it, because he'd read it a lot better than I would. Holiday Snaps. Home is the sailor, home from sea, and the hunter, home from the hill. Only the dregs of a thermos tea, only the unpaid bill, are left behind from the days of ease. But wait, I forgot. What on earth are these? The holiday snaps, the holiday snaps. Fill the album and close the gaps. Uncle Albert buried in sand. Cousin Mavis, yard from land. We guillotine the top of her head. Enormous feet fill the space instead. And this is Auntie, pretty absurd. She moved too soon, got rather blurred. And here, we forgot to wind the spool. But this is the edge of a swimming pool. Under the water, you see the bar. And there on the diving board, that's our car. The holiday snaps record it all, while the fashions change and the petals fall. Funny hats to be laughed to scorn by graceless grandsons as yet unborn. Stock for an unbuilt jumble stand. But sometimes caught by a lucky hand, a look or smile on the album's page, grace of childhood, peace of age, the glance of a girl with shining eyes, bright as the first day's first surprise, tearing the heart with a voiceless plea, to live when the taker's hand is still, when the sailor is really home from sea, the hunter home from the hill.
Well, that's just about the end of the formal bit. Before I ask Reverend Ian Hart to come up and just close it for us, just remember that there's plenty of time. I think there's refreshments still available. Yeah, oh gosh, no. Yes, there are. I'm only kidding.